Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is SCC. And tonight I thought we'd have a quick look at the round 14 team lineups because it's probably shaking up a few teams out there with I think teams struggling a little bit with players this week. We've seen a few changes that are probably going to affect a few teams and make it pretty hard to even get 18 for a few. So we'll have a quick run through, see what they mean. I mean, trades are getting pretty short at this time of year, but still interesting to look at the teams and how things are changing up. So, well, for Brisbane, it's pretty easy, not much to change, but St Kilda have made a few changes, and probably one of the first big outs here is Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira, who is being managed, but he missed training for personal reasons, so could only assume it would have to be coming because of that. Especially with them having the bye next week, doesn't really make sense to manage him this week. So I feel like they could have put personal reasons here, but nevertheless, he is out, and that's going to affect 19% of teams, and will be interesting to see what people decide to do with him. My team's one of those ones that has him. The Marvel round seems really good. I actually think this is probably one of the harder games he was going to have as well. Just coming at an annoying time considering the buys. But we'll have a think about what we do. In comes Cordy, Jones, Sharman, and Showmaker. Showmaker probably the only one that's really a player of interest. A 117k defender, I believe, so a bit of a downgrade option, but I'm not sure on the job security once Nas is back. I think they are pretty light for like, and he probably would be out, considering I think they're looking at like a Sharman or Cordy as cover for Howard, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know a huge amount about St Kilda's how they rank these defenders, but it would seem to me like Cordy is the replacement for Howard, and Showmaker has come in for Nas. So probably one you wait for on the bubble, and with him having the bye next week, it's not really a big one to bring in just yet. Moving on to the Bulldogs and Fremantle. So Ed Richards is back in, and where has he been named? He has been named on the, not on the bench. He is named, where is he? He is named on the wing. So that's, whoa, I'd assume he's probably going to be getting CBAs. Looks like defense, they're pretty happy with Buku going back there to cover for Keith, who's been injured. But another two big outs with some teams did go for McNeil, and Garcia just fully omitted, which is a little bit of the Bevo curse here, I feel, because I think a lot of teams would have been relying on Garcia for another week, and now with him going out, are going to have to try and get some more players in with only 3 trades and potentially already, short there. Probably not the one we wanted to see go out, but nevertheless has now happened. Cody Waitman is actually back, which I didn't realize until looking at that now. I thought he was out for quite a while with his dislocated elbow, but he is back. And Anthony Scott, I believe, is one we had last year. Believe he was a defender, I think, but looks like he's possibly the sub or Sanders, considering I've used Sanders before. Wouldn't mind seeing that. It's good to see that Fraser kept his spot, actually, because that would have been a pain to see him lose it. But we've kept him for another week, so he'll be primed to flip next week, I think, as teams need players and are getting that last upgrade. Fremantle, not much to talk about here. Matt Johnson back in, probably the sub. Wagner was the sub last week, and it feels like that's probably how they continue to go. With the bye last week, not much changing there. So Richmond see Tommy Lynch back. So the big man is back. It's been a while, hasn't played all year, and he's back for Dusty's 300th, with Dusty coming in, Prestia out, which means McAuliffe keeps in. Hoping he's not the sub because I could really use his money, but Richmond seem destined to play him there, which is a real pain because he looked really good. Like he had 20, what did he have? 29 in a quarter. last game. It would be nice to see him be able to do something like that and, get a run against a team like Cawthorn. But I reckon he's going to be the sub again, which means he could lose money. I don't know. I might have to trade him potentially if he's sub. I think I will because he's going to lose money and I need that money for next week. So that is one we'll be looking at. I might just go early on the Crows boy, but at the same time, kind of need a playing player. So it's going to be interesting to see what I can do. Hopefully he's not sub, especially because they play the third game, is it? Yeah, third game. So it's midweek, not many games after this, but yeah, going to have to keep an eye on that one. Hawthorn, Lloyd Meek back, so Reeves injured. That was the only reason Meek got back in, which is pretty interesting because I thought he played probably better than Reeves, and I think this has probably opened the door back up for Meek. Realistically, Watson also as well, with Mitchell being omitted, but nothing much else changing here as well. For the Crows, so this one was a big one for my team, and probably one that a lot of teams were hoping wouldn't occur, so that he didn't get this big price, potential big price rise with his break even where it is. But Isaac Rankin is back, which is really good because that gives us our 19th player with everything that's going on, and I feel like this could be a pretty good week for us considering everything. And for that, I held him because it's probably saved me a train, and he might stay pretty potty because I feel like a few teams are going to be stretching to get the money to be able to put him in. Otherwise, Nick Murray back, so key defender, and Braden Cook. Smith omitted, probably a little bit unlucky, but they're trying to make some big calls, I think. I feel like there's a few other players that probably could have moved as well. Nemec Henry, I think he's a little bit of a whipping boy, to be honest, especially from the supporters. He's a guy who just puts in 100% effort, and that's what I've always liked about Ned. He's just undersized, which is a hard thing for him. Players like him are always perfect for the sub, probably perfect to be that, player that's on the fringe. And, I think he's been quite all right. Not amazing, but, it's hard. He's just undersized. If he was, give him another 10 centimeters, he's probably playing every week because his effort's very, huge. Just size that hurts him. But Sydney make no changes there. So Errol looking good on the wing. Warner in the middle. Heaney named middle. So that's good to see. No Robert. I thought potentially Roberts could get dropped. He's been a bit down on form. Maybe Braden Campbell gets out of the sub, but it doesn't look like that will be. So potentially Campbell could be a downgrade if he goes bad again this week with a sub. He's already at 190k. So we could see that go further. Onto the extended benches with North and Collingwood. So Hardiman, Phillips, Lazaro, and Teakle. So at least Hardiman's in the mix if you did go him. Lazaro, one of the painful ones that I had, but has seemed to always be on the outer. Looking at this bench, people who have Jackson Archer probably hoping he gets game. It seems like it would be Shields, Stephenson, Archer, and then maybe Ford, but who knows with North's team because they do like to seem to shuffle Phillips, Lazaro, and Hardiman around a little bit. Collingwood, Ed Allen, 2GF, and Reef McInnes on the extended bench. Potentially could see Bytel get dropped. He's been playing pretty badly, or pretty averagely, I would have to say, but I think he may have been sub last week. Those who have Sullivan will be hoping he continues to play, but he's also been down on form. So I don't know. We could potentially see him get dropped, but Collingwood have continued to win, so I doubt they'll change up too much. You'd have to say Markov, Frampton are probably definitely playing, so it's out of the other six as to who plays. Harvey Harrison, I think, played pretty well last week, so I feel like his spot's safe. And that leaves Sullivan, Bytel, McInnes, GF, and Allen from there. And on to the last game, which sees GWS versus Port Adelaide. So Buckley, Kelly, and Gruzewski back in. Sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. Gruzewski's actually new. I shouldn't say back in, but Kelly and Buckley back in. I'd say they So that Kelly and Buckley on the extended bench, but I would think they're both going to play, which doesn't leave a huge amount of spots left open. You'd think Cadman and Peatling would also play, which puts McMullen, who is a bit of a interesting downgrade option this week, but I feel like his job security isn't really good, and I probably would stay away from it because I feel like he's, one game, couple plays back. Cornelio isn't even in this team. And if he comes back, we probably could see him move out the team. So I would probably hold fire on McMullen. Port Adelaide with a lot of players back. Connor Rosie, so he's one we could look at downgrading to as a potential M9. He's 450k with 180 or 190 break even at the moment. If he has another, below average game, he's going to go straight down to 400. I think if he goes to 88, he loses like 60k or something like that. So, or 40, I think it's 49k if he goes 88. So, could be a really interesting one. Otherwise, a lot of players that I would suspect will be emergencies, because I'd assume that Wines, Jones, Evans and Mead would be the starting four, with maybe potentially a Williams or Knuckle sub, but that's just how I probably see that going for them. All right, so, and this isn't loaded for some reason, so that's great. We're going to load. I don't know why it does this sometimes, but anyway, going on to look at the team this week. So we've got a nice projection. It could have been better if NWM was playing probably 2100, but sadly is not. So at the moment, we're looking at 19 with Revel, Fraser and McAuliffe. If McAuliffe's sub, then it's probably really only 18. Looking at Brisbane, I'd say Revel shouldn't be sub. I think he played quite well last week from what I heard, so I feel like he's pretty safe from a sub, but you never know. I think Answorth's normally the one they go for sub, isn't he? Or maybe Morris. Hopefully not sub. We've got what? So the trades this week so far have been Grundy for Moyle and Goulden for Took. Now, depending on what happens, we could potentially look at going Wangani Malira out instead, considering we're going to lose 2 matches from him, and keep Took. That's probably something I should think about. The only thing is like I feel like I'd rather Wangani Malira. The problem with Took is he seemingly just burns the ball a little bit. He gets a lot of it, but a lot of his work seems to be the stuff that doesn't really score well, whereas Rao does that stuff where it's the in and under and tackling. I mean, Took actually tackles quite a bit, but then Anderson does a lot of the breakaway kicking, and that really hurts him. So, yeah, as far as the team goes, this is how we're lining up. We only need one more upgrade, so potentially the plan is McAuliffe, Fraser, because they're both not playing next week, and going to someone like and maybe Revel to get to force Merritt into the team. But it's going to really depend on how the scores goes this week, because I'm not really sure as to what we can do if McAuliffe's sub, because his break even's 50 and it's going to be hard to hit that. I hope he plays, but it really looks unlikely. Now, the other thing is McKercher, if he didn't play next week, I'd probably just trade him, and McKercher, McAuliffe, Fraser will definitely get me what I need. But I want to keep McKercher potentially as like my floating, emergency that I'll loop. So that's probably going to keep there. Then, once next week's trades occur, I'm going to be able to think about some luxury trades, because I'm thinking that maybe we look to get an extra premium in that I can float between. So whether it's, so we got like quite a bit of DPP in the team with defensive forward, defensive mid forward. So we can kind of move around whatever we want. So really, I don't know who I really want to get, whether it's Rosie or a few others. Like there's a few others that are floating around those low price marks. I think Salem's interesting because he's probably going to get a lot more mid-time now that Petrarca's been written out off for the season. Let's have a quick look and see what we've got around this, 300 to 530. So, two's going to be losing money, so potentially could go back into him. I mean, Elliot Yo's there right now, but he will be. I wonder if potentially I could look at him, seeing he's going to be the main midfielder for them. If he doesn't get injured, he's actually quite interesting. Guys like Boca, interesting mid forward. Whitfield could potentially get a couple tags and then bottom out and be pretty cheap. Come around 17 or 18. So that could be an option, especially if like Richards comes back, because I could hopefully make some cash through him. Stewart's quite cheap as well, like 466. We got a lot of options. Although I don't really want him. Here's an option. Will Day's been playing quite well. I mean, Zach Fisher. Why don't I go Zach Fisher? Well, the reason I don't want to go Zach Fisher is I feel like once McKirch goes here, we could see more of those scores we saw at the start of the season. I know it's like a stupid pod because like everyone who's like good has him. So if he goes well, it's like bad for the team. But I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be some bad usage at some point and a little bit of pressure and maybe even an injury. So maybe this is one I just stick away from. So yeah, we got Salem at 437, which is quite interesting. I could maybe get him in next week. What was he bottomed out at, I wonder? Let's have a look. The Salem bottomed out at like 331, so that would have been really nice because you got one, like, and that was up at 99 as well, so 121.91. So you could have seen it coming. But he hasn't been able to hold it up for the whole season. Probably the only thing about him. Yeah, Jackson would actually be interesting if we see him fall. Yeah, the reason for that being that right forward cover is always good to have. Probably the only area we aren't covered in. Laird's been pretty average, but he's still over 500, so not really at that bargain range. Peatling's quite interesting, although will he get moved out once Cornelio's back? I wonder who else we could look at. I know like Baker's like one game away from like just playing that forward role, but we've got him now. Where's he named? Is he named in the midfield? Yeah, he's still named in the midfield, so that's good. And maybe Martin and Lynch back will actually mean that he can play more midfield, because I feel like he had to play a little bit of forward flank because of that. Sexton, I mean, I don't know what his role looks like once Power's back. Jimmy Warple, I mean, he's obviously been a little bit below average, which is why his price is where it's at. And there's nothing that's changing his role. The one that a lot of people have been talking about is Simpkin, but I don't love that because, yeah, he scored well last week, but that was against West Coast. I'd want to see a little bit of form from him considering how bad he has been. Zach Williams is kind of interesting. If he got defensive forward DPP, considering he's been playing a lot of forward, that would be very interesting. Oliver's getting down there as well. Like, he's got a high break, even if he goes 90 again, and then, you never know, he could find some form. But I think he's going to be number one to be tagged with no Petrarca now. What's 144 and like he has 100. So if he went another low score, he'd be absolutely falling. Bolton's interesting. If Richmond can get on a bit of a roll with a few players back, I don't mind that. I think Sard's actually quite as a defensive as a D7, he's quite interesting because he does get a lot of kickouts, although he doesn't play on from them. Saligo still here. I feel like he's going to continue to get a lot of mid run, especially with the Crow struggling and he's young. So I feel like that all kind of bodes well for maybe a big, end of season. Jakey Lloyd hasn't been great this year. I mean, Cameron, you could probably get for those spike games. He's actually, considering he hasn't really kicked a huge amount of goals this year, I don't think he's doing quite well. Is there anyone? So yeah, there's Simpkin, obviously. But like now we get down here, we're getting to the very low. Like Simpkin, everyone's thinking about him because he had this 129, but like look at his 3 round and even his 5 round 73. Like it hasn't been great. So probably think again before you do that. Jane Short, actually, very interesting. He's lost a lot of money. And he could be a nice D7. I don't mind this as a stab. Because they're starting to get it back together. The Tigers, he's starting to get it back together, and maybe potentially this is where you could jump. But like these 50s are bloody horrible. They have been more competitive the past couple of weeks, and he seems to do all right when they're competitive. So maybe keep an eye on him. This guy's got the potential to go 90, 100. And if you're getting him at 370, a lot of the risk has been taken out. And if we are short on money, maybe instead of getting like a Fife in your forward line, you go a Jane Short in your defence, because although, Fife is probably in your forward is probably a little bit of a better option just because there's not much else there. But, if that's what you need to look at, then maybe that's what you look at. Neilio is cheap as well. I feel like, these injuries aren't great and huge break even, but he's just not in a time well. Is there anyone else who's interesting? Doesn't really look like it, does it? Surprised Common got up to 130k. He must have had some spike 90s. Yeah, Grind, absolute. Very lucky I didn't go him. I'm really sorry for thinking about him. I mean, like, I feel like it wasn't the worst decision. Like the 37 against Richmond's like at GMS as well. Like that's pretty. Feels like one of the most unlikely things, especially like if you look at the rest of his scores. His lowest score had been 65 against Hawthorn. His average from round 4 to round 10 was what, over 100 or close to 100. He was averaging 90 something at that point, which was what, F7 or 8 at that point. So I don't necessarily think it was the worst, worst call, but, sometimes these things go right and sometimes they go wrong. But anyway, that's to the bottom of that listing there. So there is a few little, what we call bargain choices you could potentially go for, that we've been through there. But I think like the highest ones are maybe like a Salem or, a guy like Rosie, I think. So as far as what we want to do here for our BCC, I'm thinking Zorko into Ryan, but I could be swayed by potentially Bont into Ryan. I think that's all right. Zorko into Bont, sorry. That's also potential. And don't mind any of the Sydney boys against the Crows. Grundy, especially with Strawn being named, because if Strawn goes injured again, Grundy is going to absolutely destroy whatever the Crows put there. And they've dropped Burgess as well, who was the backup ruckman. So if he gets injured, I'm not really sure what else they have to do there. And it's at the it's at Adelaide Oval. Sorry, I was going to say it's at the SGG, but that's the game at the end of the year. But yeah, it just seems like a very interesting selection call there. Otherwise, what else? I mean, Sarong's potentially for the Dogs. I guess Dacos, but you never know. You might not want to go him. I don't mind Clark. I think he's all right. If we're looking at other players, Butters probably gets a Callum Ward tag. What else? Yeah, that's probably about it, isn't it? Really. Think I think the latest game you want to get it done by is the Collingwood North. I think you don't really want to touch anyone in that GWS Port game. I mean, if you really want to go on Butters, do it, but it feels like a bad game for him anyway. So yeah, I guess this is how we're lining up. One more week to go before we should be fully upgraded, hopefully, and well on our way to a decent end to the season, because we should have like 4 or 5 trades left, which will be really nice to have. Yeah, we should be pretty well set. Maybe Martin change, maybe a Tom Green change if he doesn't pull his finger out, but we got a little bit of time to see that, and he'll be good cover for the buyers green anyway. So with that, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please hit like. Please subscribe if you'd like. Follow along. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.